Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about easy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are... I couldn't keep it up. Unnatural Selection happens to everyone. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think anyone in the history of anything has been as tired as I am right now. I'm running off like 4 hours sleep. I partied late into last night at a wedding and it was wonderful. And then I caught an early flight to come back to work in Sydney. And I'm a trooper and I think I deserve compliments I'm the most tired anyone has ever been.
Okay.
George, okay. You know this.
First of all, go fuck yourself. Do that for 10 months and then let's have a little chat, shall we?
Oh man, if I partied that late every night for 10 months, oh Jesus.
Yeah, well the advantage I suppose, I'm not partying, certainly. So the advantage is I don't have any alcohol in my system because I'm, settling my young son at all hours of the morning. But a friend of the show, Lana, is right again. You look how I feel, Tom. We're not in our 20s anymore, so
good. I don't know.
You feel fucking rad.
I don't know. It's sort of like a baby, kind of like going to a rave party and sort of.
Certainly, your body feels just as sore afterwards. So, yeah, my back is definitely not in a good situation because it's like you're sort of flinging around an 8-kilo dumbbell. Yeah. It's not like an easy. It's like when he was little, he was sort of like 3 kilos when we brought him home. Easy as, could hold him in one hand. Now I'm doing, deadlifts and weighted squats.
Dost thou even hoist? And
Dost thou even hoist? Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's all right. I look forward to seeing those sick gains.
It's the most expensive weight system I've ever purchased, I'll be honest. But
that's how that works.
It's an organic weight system.
Yep.
The more expensive the weights are, the better the gains, right?
Yeah.
That's what I've understood from any time I've spent in the gym.
No, you've understood correctly.
Excellent. Perfect.
Speaking of someone who definitely does weights, Joe Biden. So I'm just
do weights.
Speaking of transition.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure he does.
He certainly puts a lot of weight on our hearts. So that's got to be worth something. So Joe Biden, there was some internal polling that wasn't supposed to be released, and then was released. Whoopsie poopsie, and it was from this Democratic firm called Open Labs, and basically this is the kind of organization that will do polling specifically for. It's a progressive company. They do polling for Democrats. It's generally internal polling. It's not released. So when the president says something like, we've got our numbers and they don't look the same as the public numbers from the New York Times. This is generally what they're referring to as a company Open Labs that's doing polling directly. Now
they open.
They were set they're sort of wide open. In that, the report has been linked to an organization called Puck, a news site, and basically it talks about Biden's numbers. Now, in case if you had to bet, how do you think Biden's numbers fared after the I might be leading the witness here, catastrophic debate against Donald Trump last week? If you had to put a tenner either way on that, do you think he did better after that debate or do you think he did worse? What do you reckon?
Cheeky 20% on that one, just because, that's a good number to go with.
What about a three-way multi? I don't know what
I was going to say, I think I'd throw down my $10 and get a same game multi.
Mm-hmm. Same game three-way.
I understand that.
You guys don't even watch television and you still get all of these.
Oh, Sportsbet is relentless. They'll find you, if you are a middle-aged male with an electronic device, Sportsbet will find you.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to get you.
They will haunt you. They will come into your house.
I don't like sport. I don't watch sport. I've never had anything to do with sport. I've never searched sport.
But you know what a three-way multi is.
It's just Instagram is you've got a cock. You need to look at this ad. Okay?
Adam, I'd like to just interject there. I don't know what a same-game multi is.
I know the words.
I just know that's a term.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means.
So on the same within the same game, you can have multiple bets.
No, I don't want you to explain it to me. I don't want the knowledge.
Yeah. It's such a good way to win because it's like you're just watching the one thing and then you see all the greens light up and green means go.
This is my fault because I opened us up for improv and I shouldn't have done that. And I should have just
done that. I was going to say, speaking of good ways to win, Joe Biden.
Yep. So it turns out Joe Biden's actually doing much, much worse after the catastrophic debate. And his numbers are in the toilet. So they have run this analysis and basically what it's saying is there are now other Democrats who, when you adjust for their level of name ID, would perform better in a national head-to-head race against Donald Trump than Joe Biden. So basically, like, Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom, the governors of Michigan and California, respectively, both of them, and I'm sure some others, just anyone sentient, would perform better against Trump in a Biden than Biden in a head-to-head matchup, which is not the kind of like vote of confidence that the Biden camp was probably hoping for.
That's not what you want to be hearing about your guy.
Yeah.
What are we, 4 months out?
But yeah, so there's this push internally in the Democratic Party to, potentially try and remove him. Of course, they're doing it in the way that Democrats normally do things, which is like lots of hand wringing and pearl clutching and like not actually doing much of anything. Yeah. So, so it seems as though the odds of actually replacing him aren't that good. But there's a lot of people backgrounding to New York Times journalists about their deep concerns, and that definitely helps. So,
that always looks great for a presidential campaign.
So,
he met with all the governors. He went and met all of the governors. And,
so basically,
and their fees were allayed.
Okay.
What are you talking about?
So here's the story. So he met with all the governors. He brought a bunch of Democratic governors from all over the country into the White House to say like, "Hey, Jack, I'm still all there upstairs," and basically made the joke that he's fine. It's just his brain that's no good. Haha. And everyone was like, "This is not actually the time for jokes, Joe. This is kind of a very serious situation that we're talking about here." And he also, what did he say? Talked about his sleep and getting enough sleep, making sure that he doesn't do events after like 4 p.m. and has lots of naps. And I was like, yeah,
oh boy,
I get it.
We'll just pause the nuclear war because Joe Biden.
Yeah, sorry. We've got the Soviets on the red phone, but sorry.
Joe's asleep.
Prezzi's having a nap, and we can't wake. He gets really cranky when you wake him up, so we just got to let him sleep it out. And if we could do the nuclear war, well, we've got Tuesday at. How does 10:30 work for you? Or we could.
If you could ask
do a 15-minute slot
just to hold back. We we can't get him in the Situation Room until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
We'll look, we'll get you in. We'll get you in after the neurologist, and does like 11:30 on Tuesday work for you? Or maybe we could do like a 4:40. No, sorry, he's at bed at 4:45. What am I talking about? We could do 3:30. But he is going to be sleepy. Just
brushing his teeth.
Yeah, he will be getting ready for bed. So that's part of the routine. Obviously, we do. Good night, moon.
Mess with the routine.
No. As something as a new father, I've learned you cannot mess with the routine. Okay, there is a very strict bedtime routine that you need to adhere to, and if you don't do it, they know. So you say, you do the good night, moon.
Nuclear codes.
Update the nuclear codes. And to give him a bath. The bath is important. Obviously, it's a nice warm bath. Gets him ready. Gets him relaxed. Gets him in the state of mind. And then he's off to bed. So if we could, and 10 more minutes. So
just keep going with that joke.
And it's like, it's still funny, I think, if we keep going.
It's still good. Yeah.
Much like Joe Biden, it's just going to keep going on forever and ever, surely.
I think we just have to find it funny because otherwise we cry.
Surely it'll never end. He's just going to live forever.
Choices.
So that's bad. He had an interview with George Stephanopoulos, which was also not bad. It was a radio interview that he did where he was stumbling and fumbling over his words again. Man, this is some cold. I hope I don't catch that cold. Do we want to hear Joe Biden saying some word salad, or do you reckon that's mean spirited?
Oh, well, I mean, he said them.
The conservatives who happen to stumble upon this podcast will enjoy it. So let's.
Well, and if we do nothing but
Hedge our
please some conservatives, I mean that's essentially what we're here for, is for them to just bathe in our misery at the moment. So yeah, great. Here's Joe Biden describing himself as a black woman. Yeah.
By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman, served with a black president. I'm proud of the first black woman in the Supreme Court. There's just so much that we can do, because together there's nothing. Look, this is the United States of America.
My God.
I find it okay. So there's a few things there. I'm back on board. It's very funny. That is, him losing his mind is, like, whilst it is unfortunate for democracy in the world, it is very funny. So there's a few things there. Described himself as a black woman. So I think what he meant to say was that he appointed the first black female vice president.
Yes.
In Kamala Harris. I think he then went on to say he was the first vice president
with
to a black president, being Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And then inaudible something about the first black woman to be appointed on the Supreme Court, which is Ketanji Brown Jackson, whom he appointed. So there's a lot of
going, look,
but
he said, look, this is America.
Look,
and problem sorted.
Look, Jack, I know I just said a bunch of bullshit.
But I said
that's how you know he's got lost. I've just said a bunch of words. I have no fucking clue where I am in this sentence. Look, we're America, baby. America number one. Team America. Baby. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So it's not. Fuck. It's not great that you can just see headlines of old white man president describes himself as first black woman.
It's not great.
President.
You're right, Tom. It's not great.
And that this isn't The Onion.
Yeah.
Like that, that this is like, this isn't. It's not good optics in any way, shape, or form. But I think a bugbear I have around a lot of people talking about this, though, is that I've seen others, like I feel people on the left or Democrat supporters or whatever, touting the line, like of showing all the various bullshit that Trump's ever done and being like, oh, who's the one who should be stepping out of the race? And I can't believe people are this stupid. We don't expect anyone on Trump's side of the fence here to do the right thing.
Yeah, they've always been operating in bad faith. Yeah, exactly.
No one has that expectation. No one believes that any of them will do anything that isn't the most craven, petulant bullshit that they will. We at least maybe have some modicum of respect, and I say some because it's not a lot, for the people in the Biden camp and just for the Democratic Party or anyone who's not the GOP at the moment, to maybe try and do the best they can. Because while also that leaked polling that we talked about before, all of that listed all those people like your Pete Buttigieg and whoever as being like, oh, they might perform better against Trump. They didn't say win. They didn't say win.
Well, none of them are likely to win at this point, given the polling.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but ideally, when there's an existential threat to democracy, you want to give yourself a fighting chance. You want to get guidance. Okay. You want to give yourself an extra D4 when it comes to a wisdom or a perception check and see if you can overcome fascism. When it means
what that interview phone call was like.
He rolled a natural one.
A critical failure.
We saw a critical failure real time.
Just wow.
It's bad. He needs to
real
not
bad.
be the president anymore. But according to all of these,
government will sort it out.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
the system works. Of course it does.
You've got the three. You have the courts. You've got the judiciary. You've got the executive, and then you've got Congress. And the three together will balance each other out, and there'll be checks and balances, and it'll all be fine.
You know what one of them is checking and balancing right now? I don't know if you were fishing for this, but I think this is a perfect way to jump into the fact that the Supreme Court said crime is legal.
Yeah.
If you're the president,
or pretty hard, but anyway, keep going.
That's insane. It's
pretty
insane. To borrow a Norm Macdonald joke, murder is legal in the state of California if you're the president. Like
only though, Tom, if you're acting if it's an official act, then
who
you can
decides
get
that?
away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I assume the president does. Like, we all spent decades, like, in shock and laughter at Nixon saying if the president does it, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
And, like, fuckwits like Clarence Thomas said, hold my beer and also my RV and just let it happen.
Yeah, so I mean, what Tom?
Oh, God.
Tom is referring to the line from the film Frost Nixon, which is based on a set of real life
also
interviews.
actually said it.
He actually did say it, yeah. But
He
like,
did say it.
that's what sort of brought it into the consciousness recently, where Richard Nixon is being interviewed by David Frost.
David Frost.
Yeah. And he asks him about Watergate and his criminal responsibility, his culpability. And he utters a very famous line, "I'm saying when the president does it, it's not a crime." Frank Langella nailed it. Very good.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is like, that's meant to be like a shocking moment in that film and like in the interview, because it's basically an admission that Richard Nixon actually thinks he's above the law. Like, the reason that moment is like at a pivotal point in the film is because it's absurd to think that any individual actually believes that they're above the law. That's why it's important. So for the Supreme Court to more or less say, hey, we're bringing back the divine right of kings, like, seems antithetical to what America was
founded on.
yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure
famously were not fans of having a king.
Not big king fans. No. Like, I'm not a historian, but I like on my last watch of Hamilton, I'm pretty sure that King George was the bad guy. So, and that's essentially what the Supreme Court has in this latest decision has said. Basically, as long as the president does what he does as part of an official act, as part of being president, then he can't be held criminally responsible. And this affects, of course, the January 6th case, which is going forward and seems unlikely to now proceed prior to the election, which Trump is likely to win, at which point he becomes the president and is now immune because you can't criminally convict a sitting president. And he also runs the Justice Department and can pardon himself or stop the investigation. It's broken.
It's insane.
And then also incentivizes what's called a self-coup, which is essentially what he tried to do on January 6th, where you're in power and you lose an election, or you're removed from power and you use your power and privilege as the president to stop the handover of power to another legitimate person. Which I would argue any like set of rules that incentivizes the current resident of the White House to try and steal democracy is probably antithetical to what the founders intended.
I mean, I don't think that's too much of a stretch.
Yeah, I don't think so. And it's all based on this unitary executive theory. Anyone who's watched the film Vice will know about the unitary executive theory, but it's essentially what they argue. This is a very conservative line of argument that comes out of the 1970s, I guess, post the sort of Nixon era, is that the executive is essentially the president. So, you've got the three legs of government, the executive, the judiciary, and Congress, and they're meant to check and balance each other. But in the conservative reading of what the executive is, basically they say that the president is the executive, and it kind of places one person over and above the rest of everyone else. It kind of imbues all of the authority of government in a singular person. Now, this kind of like dates back to the nuclear era and like the idea of the nuclear football, and the president kind of needs to be imbued with the authority to have a nuclear first strike, or like the right of immediate response if America is struck. So it kind of dates back to that. And obviously you want a single person to be able to react within minutes. If an intercontinental ballistic missile is headed towards the United States from the Soviet Union, for example, or from Cuba, you only have a few minutes to be able to respond and do something about that. So you do need to imbue the president of the United States with a unique authority to be able to make those life or death decisions for hundreds of millions of people. But I don't think there's any sane person's reading of the Constitution would then allow ipso facto the president's a god king. He's basically Duke Leto II, the sandworm emperor who lives for 6,000 years. Like that is the logical extension of their ruling here in terms of what the unintended consequences of what's happening. And Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote a dissent, which is basically like, do a coup, legal. Kill your opponent, like totally legal. Like anything the president does now is now legal, and that's not what the Constitution is for. I can't believe I have to say this.
The way they're framing it, so there's a few things here. So it would need to be framed in such a way as being, there would need to be like Trump, and this is the way probably Trump's lawyers will argue it, like January 6th, where there is a emergency, which is that, quote unquote, that the Democrats are trying to overthrow the election.
Yeah, exactly. But the emergency can be whatever they fucking justify it. Just like Hitler rose to power when there was a, here we've got as a national emergency, I need to seize power and suspend democracy. Like, this is how it happens.
Yes. But like, he couldn't just, there would have to be something framed up prior probably to the event happening.
But they can justify it however they want, because criminal culpability in this instance, they've gone even a step further than what was her name? The conservative justice who was appointed by Trump, the female.
Coney Barrett.
Coney Barrett. This is where she stepped off the train in terms of her dissenting from the majority opinion, which was where the other 5 justices said anything that the president does or discusses with his cabinet or his Justice Department can't be admitted into evidence when you're considering whether the thing is a crime or not. So he's got immunity for official acts. And you can't ask him about anything he said or done with anyone around him in order to prove that what the thing was an unofficial act.
Yeah.
So basically everything is an official act because I fucking said so. It's the because I fucking said so doctrine.
Yeah. To be like, one of the things he's accused of is pressuring the Justice Department to do a coup.
Right. But you can't talk to the Justice Department or rely on anything he said or anything that he did, but prove a crime.
Talking to the Justice Department, those are private.
Yeah.
Also, we can pressure them then, is what you're saying. It's like, no, he's not allowed to pressure them into a coup. That would be illegal. But you're also not allowed to ask about any of those things that ever happened. It's like, so he can do it then. Like, we just get in this.
It is literally the game of cards. Do you guys remember the film Big Daddy? With Adam Sandler.
I do remember. I remember the
classic
with the kid.
where
and the kid plays a game.
His name is Mr. Koufax. That's a big twist at the end where the adoption guy calls him Mr. Koufax and he realizes the jig is up. I remember that really strongly.
I don't remember that aspect of it. What I do remember is that when he adopts a kid and he's like not supposed to or something. Anyway, the kid's playing cards with some of his mates.
Yeah.
And the kid plays a card game called I Win. And the adults say, "What are the rules to this game?" And he goes, "I win." And he takes all the chips. And they go, "What do you mean? There are no rules. The game is just like, I've got a full house here. So like, how could you?" And he goes, "Yeah, I win. The game is I win. Every time we play, I win." And that's now American law for the president.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, according to this Guardian article that we've sourced from, we'll put the link in the show notes. This all sort of comes out of this thing in the 1970s. So it was around Nixon, obviously, but like the specific lawsuit was like a public servant or an Air Force officer, I think.
Tried to sue Nixon for unfair dismissal.
Nixon.
Yeah.
And then basically the ruling was, the president has absolute immunity from damages liability predicated on his official acts.
Yeah.
But how you can get from the president fired someone to
the president can't ever unfairly dismiss someone to do coup.
Yeah.
Murdered a crowd in Arizona or something.
Yeah, or just like strangled an intern to death. Like
it's a bit of a it's the way
so,
the Supreme
so now
Court
that we know
extrapolates all these things, it's crazy.
So now that we know that the president has unlimited authority to kill political opponents, there's only one thing left to do. Is Joe Biden needs to kill Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's the only one who can do it. Mano y mano. Let's fucking go for democracy, bro. Cage match. It's the only fair way to settle this, Roman style.
And that'd be the extra element as well. That actually, this just occurred to me because I thought, okay. So Biden is allowed to just kill Trump, apparently, thanks to this. is Trump allowed to try and kill Biden in self-defense, or are you trying to assassinate the president? Because that is
Secret Service will stop him from fighting.
Is he
back.
allowed to fight back?
It's a fight that Biden might actually win if that's the case.
Yeah. I'd love
Well,
to.
Trump's got his own Secret Service detail.
Oh, so
as
it's
a former
Secret Service
president.
v Secret Service.
But it's-
Presumably the president's got more numbers on his detail than...
And can the Secret Service agents who are like the customary ones for ex-presidents, but if it comes to the which one you shoot, surely the guy who's the current commander-in-chief takes precedence
surely.
Over, surely.
And I think, you know what I'm imagining? I'm imagining that scene in Matrix Reloaded where it's Neo fighting Agent Smith surrounded
All
by
the
Agent
Agent
Smiths.
Smiths. Yeah.
That's what I'm
all the Agent
imagining.
Smiths.
Yeah. But it's Trump and
I
Biden surrounded by agents.
I really if anyone, I doubt we'll have someone listening who has this sort of knowledge or authority. But seriously, if you're like a judge or like someone
Any constitutional
in the legal
scholars
system,
listening
any
to this
constitutional scholars
who are listening to this
wish-
podcast in a rage, by the way.
yes, I would like if you're a constitutional scholar and you're listening to the show, I would love to waste your time and ask those questions. If you could try and puzzle out the situation of Biden trying to kill Trump and all the people involved, all the facets, what happens? Because I'd love to know.
If you would like the dumbest interview of your life and you're a constitutional scholar, please email us unnaturalselectionshow@gmail.com, titling your email, "I know how to make the presidents fight. I've got the goods."
I keep thinking of that Ross Noble skit, Ray Martin fights a pig.
Right.
But it's like, but it's Biden and Trump just in their underwear.
We could put it on TV. We make a pay-per-view. That's how we solve the national debt. I mean, I think this could work.
Brilliant.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google. It's a very old and niche reference from Australian television, but just Google. It's on YouTube.
If you Google
Ross
Ray
Noble,
Martin fights a pig,
Ray Martin fights a pig, you'll
Yeah.
find it. Yeah.
Did you ever think about the fact that with AI, we may one day get to see Ray Martin fight a pig?
Maybe.
We will,
Maybe.
that'll happen in
Maybe.
our lifetimes. Our parents got to see the moon landing. They got to see the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet Union. But you know what? They never got to see Ray Martin fight a pig.
No,
Fight a pig.
We might have to burn the Amazon rainforest to power the computer that will create it. Will it be worth it? Will we sit around the burning barrels in the Mad Max apocalypse being like, but we got to see an overly smoothed, kind of shiny, too many fingered Ray Martin fight a pig.
We returned value to shareholders. It was all worth it. Speaking of the Amazon, Amazon wins a contract to store top secret Australian military intelligence. So Amazon has an arm of its company called Amazon Web Services, or AWS, which is a cloud
big
service.
kahuna in cloud computing.
The big kahuna. So it's like these guys, Microsoft Azure, like Google Cloud. Those are the big players in the cloud computing space. So if you don't know what cloud computing is, I haven't got fucking time to explain.
It's basically the computer.
You started that sentence.
I'm so tired.
You're like, I don't want to talk about
Very
what cloud
simply,
computing
you don't have the computer in your building. The computer exists in the middle of the desert somewhere in an air-conditioned building, and you just log on via the internet.
There are various things.
It's
Infrastructure.
Area 51.
Infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as like, subscribed to or owned, but just off-site. Like there's many different things.
So like when you've got a Dropbox, the information is stored on your computer, but it's also stored on a hard drive that's connected to the internet elsewhere. And that's how you can access it on your phone, on your computer, on your laptop. And the government would like to put top secret documents on these internet servers. Now, there will be a purpose-built top secret cloud, which it's not just going to go
on land. This isn't like our top secret data is going across the under ocean channels to America and sitting around there, or Sweden, or wherever maybe Amazon's using as a tax haven for this.
So the idea is, so 3 highly secure top secret data centers will be built in undisclosed locations around the country to support these purpose-built top secret cloud environments where the Australian government can store top secret documents. So it's not just going to be on, the regular Amazon Web Services server next to, copies of hentai porn. It's going to be on its own separate environment. So it's not a multi-tenanted top secret cloud environment.
But think of the savings.
Think of the efficiencies, Tom. So the idea is to have to harness some benefits with artificial intelligence technology.
And that's what I want mixing in with our top secret defense database.
Yeah.
AI. Let's give AI access to the nuclear
There's a film.
code.
There was this sort of film that there's sort of a bit like this. There's this thing called Terminator, and then all the robots come up and they literally terminate the entire human race. It's not.
There's a few steps in the middle, but that's the gist.
Some sort of intranet in the sky, some sort of Skynet.
Almost like a cloud net.
Yeah.
A Skynet, if you will. Great.
In fact,
they're putting AI in our
Terminator 3 is pretty much that exact thing. They're like, that's the big twist at the end. Is like there is no physical location where Skynet is. Skynet's just in the cloud, bro.
That movie was in like 2003.
Yeah.
Damn. Terminator 3 and Hideo Kojima, they were on it. They were on the digital future.
I mean, they say it's going to be top secret, but like if you see a big fuck off warehouse being built down the road and there's security guards out front,
what's going on in there? Nothing. Nothing at all.
I'm assuming they'll put it out in the middle of the desert somewhere. We don't want to see it.
Pine Gap.
Satellites. Pine Gap, yeah.
No, but then it is in US soil, isn't it? I forget how that works. I know that's a US base.
It's our soil, but it's a base run by the US.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that the thing about this that I find interesting, because it's exactly right. Like we see these headlines, big company like Amazon, Amazon will be responsible for the storage of top secret documents. And it's whether or not we think, is that more or less secure than if just the government themselves were like, we're building data centers to house our top secret.
Yeah.
Like, because remember, my health record or the census.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like government
that have gone
the Australian government
catastrophically wrong when it comes to digital infrastructure and data handling.
Yes.
MyGov, Centrelink, all these things that we're all like, I'm not telling the government anything I don't have to because I don't trust these motherfuckers. Do you want them to build data centers to hold the nuclear codes? Or do we want Bezos to do it?
Yeah, the guys who get your taxes wrong and then send you debt notices and hound you to your grave.
The robo-debt people.
Yeah, those are not necessarily the people I would want working on data security. You're right, because it's the 21st century. These documents need to be digitized, right? You can't. It's not a practical situation.
Well, I'm assuming a bunch of them are
paper.
digitized to a certain extent. There's got to be some digitization within the signal space.
They must be already. But I guarantee these are already digitized somewhere. They're just on Cheryl's computer.
They're just on
triangle
self-hosted servers. So if it is the case, would be much less secure than having it in a secure hosting environment like Amazon Web Services.
It can be heavily guarded and all
that.
The
thing I worry about though is that, of course, like this is not just like a honeypot. This is like Winnie the Pooh's had an orgy at his place and everyone's fucking invited. Like it is the honeypot of all fucking honeypots, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of information that you want all stored in one place in one convenient location for hackers to come.
Meanwhile, Russia's like,
They're like,
cool.
My friend, you should totally do this deal. It's a fucking great deal. Get good price, very good discount, my friend.
I guess that's where, I don't know, as they say, it's going to be allegedly multiple, data centers. So having the information all spread across them and interlinked by the cloud, means that if you theoretically, it could mean if you breach one of them, maybe you've breached all three, or you've breached one of them and you don't have the complete honeypot of information. This stuff can get as complicated as you want it.
But you need redundancies as well. Like, you're not just going to keep copies of highly secure documentation on one server in one place. There's got to be redundancies in other places in case something happens to that server, right? So
precisely.
There's a lot of
there's a lot of factors here.
A lot of factors going on, and I just worry that whenever you hook something up to the internet, there's a countdown starts ticking down from the moment you've added those documents or whatever the material is online to the time where that stuff gets hacked. Like it's really not about if the stuff gets hacked. It's about how long before the stuff gets hacked if you're putting it on cloud services. So
everything is hackable. So.
I hope that everything is hackable, and on a long enough timeline, it will be hacked. Like it's not a matter of if, it's when. So I hope we got a really good plan for dealing with that. Adam, Adam's go on, Adam.
I was just gonna say, like, it depends on, like, yes, the threat landscape will always increase, and as these data centers become known, because they will become known. Like, there's going to be top secret, but like people will find out where they are.
But if you see a fucking data center, if you see a local Coles that hasn't got anyone in it and a bunch of guys with M16 standing out the front, you can make an educated guess.
But while threat landscapes change, the defensive landscape changes as well. Now, granted, sometimes the defensive landscape is maybe a couple of steps behind to a certain extent. You would hope that if this is being headed up by the Australian Signals Directorate, who are basically our NSA.
I'd love to see that technical questionnaire.
This is 3,000
they're going to be
pages. Pretty.
Yeah, we've all done those ones at work where it's always like, you're in the coffee shop, like working remotely, and then your coffee order's ready. Do you leave the laptop on the coffee on the table to go get your latte
Australian military secrets?
Do you bring it with you? Yeah, one's like, Vasily is talking to you at the ball game. Like, he seems really nice.
George Papadopoulos approaches you in a bar in America. He tells you about some emails that have been hacked. What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you as Alexander Downer do?
It's like, wow,
this is very specific.
So it's it is a long time frame, so that should take another sort of 5 to 6 years. They were saying for that to actually happen. So not going to be happening overnight.
But it's going to create 2,000 jobs allegedly. So some jobs and Joth.
Jobs and Joth. Maybe maybe Bruce Lehrmann can get a job with the Australian Signals Directorate.
Do we want that?
No, probably not.
I don't think we want that.
I just needed an excuse to go to a segue, Tom, to the next story, which is that a magistrate in Queensland has ruled that there was sufficient evidence to have the matter determined by a jury or judge, and that is that Mr. Lehrmann is now going to face 2 counts of rape, which are alleged to have occurred in Toowoomba, west of Brisbane, in October 2021.
Yes. Now, this story started a while ago when there was a bit of a furore of people were talking about that a high-profile person had been charged with rape, but no one could talk about it. They're like, we aren't allowed to tell you who it is. We aren't allowed to tell you who it is. And then they're like, all right, yeah, it's Bruce Lehrmann. And this was before all the other findings in the civil case with Brittany Higgins and all that sort of stuff. So
I'm shocked that Bruce Lehrmann, of all people, was charged with rape for the first time.
Yep.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm reading this is the second time. Sorry.
Yeah.
Shocked. Totally shocked. You never would have seen it.
Yeah, so it was a bit up in the air, I think.
From Bruce Lehrmann. Would not have seen that coming.
Would not.
No. So it was a bit up in the air as to sort of how this was going to go, especially following the previous case. And I know there'd be issues of jury pool and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I think they haven't decided whether or not it'll be heard by a judge or by a jury, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, this is a big step in that a judge has at least said, there's enough here that we're going to conduct a trial.
And that was because the defense of Mr. Lehrmann were basically saying that they were alleging at the outset that there wasn't enough evidence and they were trying to get the case dismissed. So that defense is... But I don't know how he can afford a QC.
He's being represented this time, unlike his appeal on the other one where he just submitted the stuff himself and is just cowboying it.
I mean, maybe through legal age you do get a King's Counsel somehow. I don't understand how.
No, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So King's Counsels, for the uninitiated, are people, formerly Queen's Counsels or QCs, are very highly paid and sought after barristers. They're the cream of the crop, as it were. As far as I'm aware, you don't get a KC just on like pro bono. Like
I don't know if
the public defenders,
you're entitled to public defense. I don't know
public
if there's-
defenders are not KCs. That's not what happens.
No.
Okay.
I just don't know. I know in American TV shows, there's always like you have to do your mandatory
certain number of pro bono hours.
like pro bono hours. So sometimes even your Harvey Specters or whoever.
Yeah, I very much doubt Rake is turning up and it's like, oh no, it's bloody Bruce Lehrmann, mate. What have you done, Barney? I got stuck with Bruce.
Yeah. So cool.
Yep.
Do we talk about the alleged facts of the case, or we leave that out for this instance?
I don't know at this point. Like, does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Like, it's the fact is it's going to trial. We can kind of, we can point and laugh to be like he's going to suffer some more. But I guess also this is the matter of like people were allegedly assaulted. So pointing and laughing matter. So
well, the background of the detail of the accusation was that a woman at the center of the allegations said she'd met Bruce Lehrmann, that there were alcohol and drugs consumed. They went back to a friend of his's place and had consensual sex. And then she woke up later on that night with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
What the appropriate way to describe it is.
I think we get it.
She's alleging that he was raping her. She woke up to him raping her. So, and it wasn't until she saw the interaction with Brittany Higgins and her being named, or him being named in connection with her, I should say, that she then filed a report. It was the day after that it came to light that it was Bruce Lehrmann that had been accused by Brittany Higgins.
Yeah.
So she kept it to herself. She went and got emergency contraception the next day, and they're like, you didn't tick the box that said I'd been sexually assaulted, so how could you possibly have been sexually assaulted if you didn't tick the right box? Which is facile and dumb, even for lawyers. And so
they'll do anything. Like when you're the one defending the alleged perpetrator, like
which is why everyone loves lawyers, because they always tell the truth.
Just asking questions, George. They're just asking questions.
So
probing questions.
Yeah. So they've tried to get it thrown out, and obviously that's been unsuccessful. So he's going to stand trial on these rape charges now, and we'll see how that goes. Now, I would like to add that Mr. Lehrmann has not been convicted of any crimes and denies all the charges against him. He has always maintained his innocence. You happy? Great.
The lawyers are happy, George. The lawyers are happy.
Yeah, our lawyers are thrilled. Yeah.
Yeah. We will
5 stars.
We will be relying on a public defender. So if this goes to court, so just be aware of that.
If you're a QC and you happen to just be,
and you just
a KC. Sorry now, and just happen to be listening to this show, I would love to waste your time with frivolously defending us against whatever bullshit comes our way.
I hope justice prevails. On another topic entirely, Fatima Payman, the senator who we discussed last week, has decided to quit her membership of the Labor Party and has accused colleagues of intimidation. So there was some talk initially about her potentially signing with a Muslim community linked party, which is prominent in the western suburbs of Sydney, apparently to try and sort of cohere around sort of Muslim candidates and things like that. A fact that our beloved Peter Dutton decided to mention. Actually, I have to find that clip that you sent through, Tom, about him talking about that.
But, I can flick it to you.
Yeah, flick it to me. But yeah, so she's not going to be joining any Muslim community linked party. She's going to be moving to status of independent. She mentioned that she was, quote, deeply torn, unquote, over the decision and continued to believe in the principles of the Labour Party, but felt that she could see, quote, no middle ground, unquote, that would allow her to remain in the party. Which, I mean, it's exactly what we were talking about last week. Like, she's a young Muslim woman, like, who's voting her conscience on Gaza. Yes, it was a symbolic vote to recognize Palestinian statehood in the Senate. Like, would not actually have changed the status of anything with regard to Australia or how it treats Palestine. But I think countries around the world are doing symbolic acts like this to try and, you know, raise the profile of what's going on and show support. So, and she voted across the floor and voted with the Greens to support this notion, as like, of course she would. As like someone who's a millennial and someone who's a Muslim woman, like, it seems completely fair enough that she would have done that. Yeah. And the Labour Party said that they were gonna kick.
Yeah. The Labour Party lost their fucking minds.
Everyone lost their minds. It was bad.
Well, basically, so last week she was suspended indefinitely from the Labour caucus, which basically means that
you can't sit with us.
Well, she can't sit. You can't sit with us. But also, any say or power she had within the Labour Party is effectively null and void. From her perspective, what's the point of staying?
You've just completely
but you'll still take my vote. Okay, rad. Like.
What's the point of staying with the party that you don't have a say in?
I saw there were also sort of like backgrounding happening, like leaking out from the Labour Party as to whether or not she might be a dual citizen. They suddenly cared about that.
Yeah, just quietly floating the old racist trope of dual loyalties. That's super cool.
Like, while they were in our party and we had our slim majority, that's fine. But no, now that we've suspended them, now we suddenly maybe have a problem. Like, it was horrendous.
Found the documents on Cheryl's computer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, dug them up out of the Amazon Web Services server. We found them thanks to the AI.
Yeah, that's why I feel Senator Payman's comments of that, feeling like intimidated out of the party. I think rightly so. Like, I think she is well within her rights to say that.
Make no mistake. Like we watched the Nemesis documentary, you know, about the successive Liberal governments and or coalition governments and how there was a culture of intimidation, you might say, between different members and. You know,
plotting and backstabbing and
the power broke. It was never like the people, right, who were like the front runners. It was never like the prime minister, or it was never like the guy who wanting to be prime minister that would rock up to your door and say, "Hey, please vote for me." It would always be like the guy wanting to be prime minister's best friend or the best friend's second employee,
plausibly deniable intermediary.
Yeah. So this is how, unfortunately, Australian politics works. But if you think Labor is any better than the Liberal Party, then you'd be sorely mistaken. Because the parties are set up
with respect to this. Yeah, this is what parties are. This is the point of a party is to bully people. That is what a party infrastructure is like we bully people to have the same perspective and vote the way that we want them to vote. Unfortunately, in the case of the Democrats in the US, their party is so sclerotic that it is unable to perform the functions of a party and get rid of their fucking leader who's going to drive them all to an early grave. But in the case of Australia, the party infrastructure is quite healthy in that regard. It is able to bully people freely and frequently.
And to be clear, just to summarise again, so the reason why this is all a thing is because the Labor Party's rules are that you are not allowed to have a conscious vote on these kind of things, that you vote with the party no matter what, and basically your chance to speak up, your chance to vigorously debate, and as various Labor spokespeople have said at various points over the last sort of fortnight, that if you want to have your say, you've got to do it within the room and we'll respect your values. Behind closed doors, basically. It all happens.
And then you got to shut the fuck up and do exactly as we say. That's how we respect diversity.
Yeah. So
isn't it ironic that the party that allows conscience votes doesn't have a conscience? And yet the party that does have somewhat of a conscience remaining doesn't allow conscience votes.
The irony of that was definitely not lost on me this past week.
It's put some pressure on the Labor Party to whether they should potentially change that long-standing policy that they've got. I don't think they will. It's sort of like, I feel like this now that, look, to her credit, Payman, one of the reasons she said that she did this was to draw the matter to a close because it was just dragging on. And I feel like in the fact that she's done this, it probably has to a certain extent. It's probably getting it out of the news cycle a little bit. And it won't really affect too much the standing of power because the Labor government didn't have a majority in the upper house anyway. So they were doing negotiations with the crossbenchers at various points. You're right there, Tom? You're
my cat is yelling something fierce. Like he's just...
Oh, I can hear him. There we go.
I heard it.
Oh, I'm going to see what that is. Maybe there's a ghost in the house. I don't know.
Spooky ghost. All right. Hudson has spotted a ghost. Haunting confirmed. Yeah. So for this matter, I'd say it's sort of starting to draw to a close, and it won't really change the workings of government because they already had a minority in the upper house anyway.
Yeah, well, you can't really afford to lose additional seats then when that's the case, right? It's like one thing if you've got a supermajority. It's another thing when you need everyone's votes to start pushing people out of your party. And it's also
it makes it harder
not good with young voters as well, who also like millennials and Gen Zers have a very different regard to the situation in Palestine than some older voters do. So it's like, given that you rely on your young base to be Labor voters, and you might be relying on them sooner rather than later, depending on when an election is called between here and May next year. Doesn't seem like a super wise move to further alienate those voters, as well as voters in Western Sydney that make up like core Labor constituencies. Doesn't seem like the smartest idea to alienate all of these people at once.
Yeah, I feel like the Labor Party is trying to toe the line of not pissing off the Jewish side of things as well. They don't want to sort of all of a sudden go completely to one side, even though you could argue that there is reason to that for many reasons. Both major parties want to. Well, the Liberals want to basically. They're basically going to have a pro-Israeli point of view because that's a very strong constituency for them, and for Labor they're going to want to try and sort of sit on the fence because they want to sort of keep everyone happy to, I guess, mean that they would get more votes come the election, even if it does mean pissing off small constituencies within certain parts of Sydney. But yeah,
you're on mute.
God damn it. This Ming Vaz strategy, the small target strategy that Labor ran at the last election, I don't think it's going to be successful again. I think people are going to be pretty aside from everything else that's going on, like inflation and cost of living crisis and rental crisis and housing crisis and all the crises, these a real rat king of crises that we've got going on in Australia. Aside from all of that, the world is facing pretty major problems. The rise of fascism, global warming. I would argue, this would be my strategy, is they want a kind of robust, progressive Labor government. I understand that you can't be, Captain Communism day one. I understand you can't come swinging out of the gates as a hero of the Soviet Union. No one's expecting that. They want a steady pair of hands for the first term and then, more progressive maybe in the second term. But you really need to start delivering for people because
you're not guaranteeing that.
You're not guaranteeing yourself a second term at this rate. People are becoming pretty disillusioned pretty fast. The honeymoon period for the Labor government felt like it lasted maybe 6 months, maybe a year. It seems like it's getting shorter and shorter. People are pretty pissed off with the state of politics at the moment, and you need to give them what they want. Otherwise, they won't vote for you again. And that's kind of how you all have jobs.
Don't worry, George. Peter Dutton, his strategy this next election is going to be amazing. Do we want to play the clip of the talking? He managed to smash about 5 or 6 xenophobic coalition talking points into a 1 minute and 20 second.
It's
clip.
a doozy.
Yeah,
even for him.
Getting the clip up. Give me a second.
No worries. Well, while he's loading that up, do you want to know all the noise that's been going on, all the screaming and the shouting from the cat? You know what the catastrophe was?
The catastrophe?
Yeah, the catastrophe.
His bowl is empty.
Oh, no.
It's a classic.
I walked around the corner and there he is looking at me, meowing, and I follow him, like, lead me. All right, well, because sometimes he's a good cat and he's like, there's a big fuck off spider over here. I'm alerting you to it so you can take care of it. That's sometimes a handy thing. And he leads me to his bowl. It is not dinner time.
I don't know if you've seen this here. It's a pretty dire situation over here in the cat bowl situation over here. So.
Cat bowl's empty. He gets fed in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know you're podcasting or whatever, but we've got a real emergency going on here. I think it's best that you stop what you're doing, put your pens down, and pay attention to what really matters.
So
but you gave him a nice little cuddle.
Yeah. I did. I brought him in here to see if he wanted to explain himself to the listeners, but... No, he wanted back to the bowl and back to yelling. So if you hear him yelling some more, that's what's going on.
Speaking of,
he's not dying. He has eaten and will eat again.
Speaking of eating and leaving no crumbs, Peter Dutton.
Okay. And can I just ask you about Fatima Payman as well? The Prime Minister made some comments during question time yesterday that were talking about it will explain the strategy that has been in place for over a month. What did you make of that?
So the journalist is asking him to explain the strategy, Labor's strategy with regard to ejecting Fatima Payman from the party. I don't know if you could hear that there, but that was the question. And here's the response.
Oh, look, I think it was a political play by the Prime Minister. What you know about Anthony Albanese is that he's a lifer. He's been in Parliament for almost 30 years.
Just to clarify, Peter Dutton has been in Parliament for 23 years. And first ran for office when he was 19 as a member of the Young Liberals, to which he is a lifelong devotee.
He's a tricky political operator. There's no question about that. And what he's tried to do here is to spike the story of Fatima Payman, who clearly is going to go out into another party or into some independent, collaboration. I don't know what her plan is, but clearly the Prime Minister does. And I think he's trying to spike that story. I think that's what's happened there. I think what it does demonstrate is that the Prime Minister, if he's in a minority government in the next term of Parliament, it will include the Greens, it'll include the Green Teals, it'll include Muslim candidates from Western Sydney. It will be a disaster. If you think the Albanese government is bad now, wait for it to be a minority government with the Greens, the Green Teals and Muslim independents. That is not the formula for bringing grocery prices down and for getting our economy back on track. Inflation will continue to rage under that sort of a government, and interest rates will go higher, as we're seeing the Reserve Bank warn at the moment.
Okay.
PB, I think it was like 6.
Wow.
How many talking points in there?
So I love how Angus Taylor's standing behind him. I love watching the nodding people behind the person talking. I always find that hilarious.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Angus Taylor is nodding along. You go, fucking yeah. Oh, we all agree with Peter Dutton, don't we? Have a bunch of manufactured consent. For Daddy made you your favorite. Manufactured consent. Have some. We all agree with Peter Dutton, don't we? And so he's nodding. Yeah, they're going to be in a minority government, the Greens, and Angus Taylor goes,
yeah, that's bad. Yeah,
and then bad. The Teals, and he goes, the Teal Greens, yeah, we got him again. Yes, they're going to be involved. And Muslim candidates, and then you see Angus Taylor's go, what? You see, he stops nodding and is like,
yeah, that's the moment.
Wasn't
that's when
expecting
Angus
that.
Taylor realized, oh, this clip's going to be on the news.
Oh, this is going to be on the telly.
Like, this isn't one of those. It's on ABC 24 at 11:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, and not many people see it. Oh no, this is the clip that everyone's going to see.
Okay, stay still, Angus. Stay still. We don't want you associated with those words. Oh, but he said inflation. Inflation. We're big nod again. Inflation. That's a bad one.
But David Littleproud on the other side, just looking like he's very confused. Doesn't know where he is. It's just kind of like.
It's so, as Adam said before, xenophobic. It's so xenophobic and racist, even for him. Like,
well, it's not even just racist. The other thing is like. There is this.
It is racist,
I don't understand
to be clear, but it's also other things.
But it's racist, but it's also like that. There's this thing within Liberal governments across Australia. They're like, you don't want to have a coalition government with the Labor and the Greens. Oh my God! Can you imagine Labor and the Greens?
Could you imagine some sort of coalition running the country? Two different parties together, working together to advance their agenda, like us, chaos. The Nationals and the Liberal Party, a coalition famously known as the Coalition.
It is, and they trot every Liberal government or Liberal Party in Australia, when it's running for office, trots this out. It's famous in Tasmania. In Tasmanian politics, the fear of the Labor-Green coalition is like the driving force, which has meant the Liberals have stayed in power for God knows how long, for over many years. But like, this concept that somehow the workings of government will stop if people vote progressive and they splinter their vote. Look, maybe there's some truth to that, in certain contexts, but it's not like an absolute truth that every single time there's some sort of coalition government. We'll talk about coalitions in France.
Or here's what you might see, is you might see a Labor government like with Julia Gillard, where she had to, work with the Greens and the crossbench. That is, passes things like the carbon tax and is a little bit more progressive than the Labor Party might otherwise be, because they are forced into a coalition with the Greens. And I personally think that wouldn't be a half bad idea if we got Labor, if we got the little dimples out of Labor's ass from sitting on the fence all the time and actually got them to enact some actual progressive policies. I think that wouldn't be so bad, personally.
Also, the Gillard government was one of the most productive governments in terms of passing legislation.
Very much so.
On record.
Passed heaps of stuff. Especially, which is especially impressive considering that it was, a minority government, done in coalition with the Greens, right? So, they run this fucking fear campaign. And it's also
and throw some Muslims,
sprinkle some Muslims on it, as though Muslims aren't part of Australian society and don't deserve to be represented by the democracy. Like,
maybe in Peter Dutton's weird view of what the country should be like, is his happy utopia is exactly that.
It's just bizarre to me, though. It's like, this is how you're trying to appeal to vote. Like, if you became Prime Minister, Peter, you would be Prime Minister of the Muslims, you'd be Prime Minister of the whole country, right? Like,
you would have to be the Prime Minister for Western Sydney.
Yeah, exactly right. Not just rural Queensland. You'd be the Prime Minister for everyone if you ran the country.
And also, you can't go after religious votes and be like, we need, previously back when they were traditionally the Conservatives in Australia have tried to court religious,
evangelicals
votes
and Christians and
and that includes people of the Islamic faith as well. So you can't pick and choose your conservative value set that you're trying to protect. The reason that radical left progressivism,
the reason that Muslim voters don't generally vote for the coalition is because the coalition is incredibly racist. The typical Muslim voter
like this.
The typical Muslim voter you would think would be an ideal candidate for the Liberal Party, because they generally have, conservative, religious, family first values. Like, those are the kinds of things that the Liberal Party have aligned themselves with for generations. You would think that they would be targeting those communities with that messaging, saying, hey, vote for us. We're the party of conservative family values. Like, yes, we're Christians, but largely Christians, but we share a lot in common. Maybe you want to vote for us. Largely migrant communities are, have higher rates of small business ownership and things like that. Again, things that the coalition have targeted as their key demographics for a long time. It makes sense. And yet, rather than doing that, they're just the scary, they're going to have Muslims in government. The scary Muslims are coming to get your government. It's what are you doing, Peter?
And just for that a cultural and religious demographic just being the third thing in his list of political enemies is just things that I don't like. Because it's one thing to be like, they'll have to work with as much as we've dismantled this idea, but saying they'll have to work with the Greens, another political movement that we don't agree with. They'll have to work with the Teals, a political movement that we don't agree with.
Green Teals
that we don't agree with, and then like not a political party, not anything.
Yeah, and then the group of people that we don't like, that we
Muslim.
otherize.
It'd be like what we said during a lot of the marriage equality things, like just replace what he said with the Jews and hear the sentence again.
Well, part of
like
one of the reasons that they lost a couple of key seats in the last campaign is because they did similar things towards the Asian community.
Yeah.
And so Asians overwhelmingly didn't vote for them because they're like, I'm going to vote for the party that doesn't say bad things about me and who I am. Doesn't see me as a liability or a danger. You know, like I'm going to vote for the other party then. And so they lost a couple of key constituencies in Melbourne's inner east because they have a high preponderance of, you know, people of the Asian community. Like it
also shows like he's not fit to be prime minister because like he's talking like a local candidate from Queensland.
Yeah.
That is typically, you know, that would probably play well in a, maybe a mostly white Queensland demographic.
Sure.
But you want to be prime minister, bro. Like you've got to widen your bracket. And it's just, anyway, it's, I don't understand how they can continue to let him just talk.
Because his brand of divisive wedge politics has been very successful. And given that a lot of the moderates in the party, like Dave Sharma, like Josh Frydenberg, like they all lost, you know, got the arse in the last election, they're surrounded by conservative yes men. He's surrounded by, you know, Angus Taylor and David Littleproud and Matt Canavan. And so you fucking go for it, Peter. Fucking show them, fucking Peter. Go for it, mate. They're not surrounded by, you know, Kelly O'Dwyer's and, what was her name? She was the foreign minister, Julie Bishop. And, you know, they're not surrounded by moderate conservative voices that are trying to win the center ground in blue ribbon liberal inner city seats. He's surrounded by him, worse versions of him, if you can believe it. And so I don't know, like it seems like it's a problem because what it does is it drags the Overton window, the window of acceptable political discourse to the right, I think. If the two parties, if you haven't got centrists, center left, center right, what happens is you've got Labor, who's the centrist party, and the other option you have is the coalition, which is now, I would argue, a far right party rather than just like a conservative party or a center right party, as it used to be. Maybe
definitely well on their way at the very least.
So pre-Howard, it was certainly like a centrist center right party. Since Howard, since Abbott, since, you know, it's become, I'd say it's fair to say, especially with the conservative arm more or less lopped off at this stage at the last election, it's become a far right party. And now they're competing with One Nation in various seats. That's their biggest piece of competition. So you've got, you know, Labor over here in the center, and then the other point of difference is the Liberal Party, and then to the right of them, One Nation. And that's the whole span of the political discourse. Like the Greens only have a few seats. They're not really dragging the discourse leftwise. So what you have is a discourse that is inevitably being dragged to the right, because now there's the right, you know, the conservative position and the leftward position, but they're now 20 yards to the right of where they were a couple of election cycles ago. So I think this is going to have a really corrosive effect on the discourse and how we conceive of things here in Australia. And I would not be surprised if if people get, you know, inflation is like kryptonite for incumbents. And so you might face a scenario where people are underwhelmed with Albanese and they vote him out. And the effect is voting like someone like Peter Dutton in because of the way our sort of, you know, our two-party system works.
It's probably a good way to just...
We could do what France did.
Yeah.
Either way.
So France, probably a good way to segue in quickly. France has been in the midst of elections for its National Assembly, kind of like their Congress or their lower house, basically. A couple of hundred, or several hundred seats in that parliamentary body. So basically, Macron called snap elections after the European elections showed a massive swing to the far right.
And it was
European
kind of a Parliament that
correct
sort of governs the European Union, which sits above the individual countries, right?
So Macron saw that and went, shit, let's try and head them off.
Or le fuck.
Yeah.
Let's head them off at the pass and we'll call elections now.
Yeah, we have it now before, what are they called? The National Rally led by Marine Le Pen can mobilize.
Yeah, and what a brilliant piece of strategy that was.
I mean, yeah, like in a way,
well, polling was
turn out too well for him specifically, Macron. But yeah, the polling, Adam, go ahead. The polling was something.
Well, the polling was going to say that, Marine Le Pen's National Rally were tipped to smash everyone. Like, it was not looking good.
Yeah. And then headlines running rampant of like, this will be the first far-right government in France since the war.
Yeah.
Because Macron would still be president no matter what, because his term doesn't end for another couple of years. But the entire government would be filled with national far-right people. And I guess the idea was that he thought that even if they did get into power, they'd balls it up so hard that by the time they got round to the next president, like basically saying like they're going to fuck up the country and everyone will be mad at them the next time they want to vote. Which seems like a bad strategy, but anyway.
But a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a new left-wing alliance was formed called the New Popular Front. And in the last 3 weeks, they've managed to now basically secure not an outright majority, but they've secured the most amount of seats in France's National Assembly.
So it wasn't miscalculation, but not in the direction that we were all thinking. It went to the left of Macron rather than to the right, which is surprising.
And to be clear, the left, these guys are pretty far left. They're not like
France has got
like
a history of electing socialist parties to government, like Francois Hollande and stuff was a socialist, right?
And of eat the rich, bring out the guillotines.
Yeah, famously, they are synonymous with guillotines and eating the rich, in fact.
These people have been very critical of Macron as well. So basically, you've got them holding, I guess, the most seats, but then Macron's party came in sort of second. They've got a big chunk, and then Marine Le Pen's party got the rest of it, and there's a few other different sort of parties in the mix as well. But broadly, it's broadly speaking, you could say it's sort of split in thirds, roughly speaking, which kind of means that now to form government, someone's got to form. Well, the far left party, the National, the New Popular Front, they're going to have to form a coalition. Now, likely they would form it with the centrist party, Macron's party.
You would assume, yeah.
But I mean, this is the thing about French politics, which I've recently found out, is that they don't really do coalitions. It's not
Here in France, we protest, we fight, we fuck, and we don't make coalitions.
So while here in Australia, we're saying, coalitions can work great, and certainly in other parts of Europe, you've got places like Belgium where they've got to have like 10 parties that merge together to be able to fucking form government. In France, they're like, there's been different like republics in France, like up to the Fifth Republic now, which Charles de Gaulle sort of set up, when he was sort of president. And the way that was set up was to think, well, you're going to have two major parties in the center and some fringes on the outside, but the major parties will be in the middle. But it's kind of shifting now. Yeah, and that those will have the majority of seats. So it's kind of like cultural cringe for them to be like, hey, do you want to like partner up? It's like going into a classroom and being like, hey, everyone's got to get a partner for your new project. And then you're like, I don't want to fucking work with George. Look at him. Look, he's just sitting there. He's just fucking smoking away. No one wants to work with George. And so instead, rather than completing the task, you just pull out of school altogether, I guess.
It's
like a barricade or something.
It's like being the very undesired third in a menage a trois. Like there's already some activity, and the French would be very familiar with this analogy, of course, being a nation of perverts. But it's unfortunate sort of bedfellows that they're going to have to contend with. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. No one really foresaw this as a result. France seems to have a habit of parties kind of like sweeping out of nowhere. The same thing happened with Macron when he initially came into power.
Yeah.
It's like it was kind of the the conservative right against the socialist left, and then Macron kind of like swept in on a boogie board with his centrist party, which didn't really exist prior to his kind of like political movement rising. So yeah, it's interesting that they are they're so ready to invest in outsiders, the French.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
The part of this election that I love so much is that, like, it wasn't just, the polling was wrong. Like, I mean, yeah, there was issues with, the polling, they miscalculated and all that sort of stuff. But that there was a cohesive strategy among everyone who wasn't the Nationalist Party, Marine Le Pen's party, which was fuck Nazis. Because what they did was, in a whole bunch of different electorates, like, candidates pulled out of the race. They all like kind of just decided
tactical voting.
We're all gonna pull out. So then it's only one of
has the best chance
left-leaning people, and then also the fascists,
which is an amazing amount of coordination to pull off. In just like a couple of weeks,
all
like
these
that's
political
really
parties,
impressive.
this quote unquote coalition of people in the no coalitions France, kind of all went, no, we all bail out so Bob can run, because Bob will definitely crush the Nazis, and they did, and we drank fascist tears. Like, I love it so much. It's like, I've seen a lot of people pointing to us, like in Australia, being like, Labour, the Greens, see. This is what you're meant to be doing. Remember when you guys worked together to fucking fuck off the far right maniacs?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at
gestures in France,
if you look at based on population numbers, right? Australia is more progressive than it is conservative. If you look at the vote share of Labor, it hovers around sort of high 30s, low 40s in terms of percentage points. The Greens generally make up between sort of 10 and 20%, depending on where you go. So, I mean, you're looking at an electorate that's at least, 50% progressive or nominally progressive. So if we just cooperated together a little bit more, then we wouldn't get sort of wedged on all these dumb things like, foreign policy and energy policy and things like that. Like, if we're all just a little bit more French in our approach to fucking over the conservatives, perhaps we'd, get a little bit more done. But
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Didn't stop the riots in Paris occurring over the last sort of night or two as well. So,
they're either voting or they're rioting. That's all they do. That's the main industry in France, I think. So, and you know what?
That and
delicious bread and cheese in between. It sounds great.
Honestly, could be worse.
Speaking of worse,
Rishi Sunak.
So the UK election also happened this week, and the Tories, the Conservatives, did not do.
What do they? How would they say it in England? They got bollocked. They got absolutely thumped.
Yeah, the twat got bollocked, I think.
They got their shit pushed in.
They have lost 250 seats since their last general election in 2019. They only won 121 seats this year. Labour.
And 10 more minutes.
Wipe out!
Prominent ex-cabinet ministers all lost their seats. Liz Truss is gone. See you later.
See you, Liz.
Absolutely destroyed.
Which that seat
still here.
Was like a multi-thousand vote majority that she had in that seat. And it's nice to know that when you like fuck the country, that there's still consequences, at least in British democracy, at least somewhere. Like if you fuck the whole country up, then you might lose your seat. Like, even if it is a very conservative district, that's nice to know that there's still people, with hearts and minds pulling the lever in these in some of these constituencies. That is slightly heartening.
In the end, Reform Party, which we spoke about, I think last week or the week before, they won 4 seats and secured 14%
only 4.
of the vote.
Okay, because
sucked in, shithead.
Yeah, I saw them projected to get, I thought, 10. So 4 is a great result compared to that.
Well,
although
we'll talk about
Nigel Farage didn't win his seat of Clacton-on-Sea, which is very annoying. But
yes,
well, it's an interesting point as to why. Yeah, it might be a little bit different. They did secure 14% of the vote overall, but so Labor won. They won, took 64% of the seats. But here's the thing: they only had 34% of the actual vote.
Primary vote, yeah.
So what that means? Well, they first past the post.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas in Australia we've got
preferential voting and compulsory voting.
Yeah. And compulsory voting. So yeah, that's the other thing. Lowest voter turnout in quite a while. I think they only had 60% of eligible voters rock up. 67% was last election in 2019. So yeah, because we have in Australia we've got what do we say? It's preferential voting, where you go, well, if your first guy doesn't get in, then we'll go to the second. If your second guy doesn't get in, then we'll go to the third, and we go down. And if you're really keen, you can number 1 to 120 senators in the above the line.
I do,
because you're a psychopath. Yeah.
Hey man, I don't want any Pauline Hanson fucking sneaky preference deals getting a One Nation candidate in there. Okay, we're going all the way. I'll vote. 100. One of the, what is that? Animal rights? Sure, I'll vote for them above One Nation. Why not?
So yeah, in Britain it's much more straightforward. It's just whoever gets the most amount of votes. So let's say you've got 10 candidates on your piece of paper. Like the Labor may have got the most amount of votes, but it's still like only 34% of the total amount of votes that were cast.
Yeah,
it's not like a ringing. It's not an enthusiastic Labor vote. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
but
it's not a majority, right?
They were voting out the Conservatives. It depends which seat. There was a lot of tactical voting happening, where it was reported, although it wasn't officially confirmed, that there was some sort of working agreement between the Liberal Democrats and Labor to not contest certain seats in certain areas. So the Liberal Democrats are more of a centrist party, with a bit of a sort of kind of like, socially liberal but kind of fiscally conservative bent. That's their angle. And there were certain seats that Labor didn't go for because it was like a short, like they still had someone on the ticket, but they weren't investing resources into particular seats because they would likely Liberal Democrat seats. And if Liberal Democrat wins the seat, and then means the Tories going to be out, which still benefits them. And likewise, Liberal Democrats didn't contest certain Labor seats, which they were in contention for because, so they kind of had it sounds like a bit of an informal agreement to make sure that the Tories got edged
almost
out.
Like a coalition.
Almost like a coalition.
And this is why, like in France, so France have runoff elections, right? So to use the previous election as an example, they've got runoffs. So they'll have a round of voting, which in the first round, the Conservative guys did really well in because, and then they filter down the results, right? So you've got less choices to pick from, and they do another set. And then sometimes, they'll do another set, and you have runoffs after runoffs depending on the type.
Or you could just do preferential voting and get it done on the one day. I don't see why they do it. It just seems dumb.
Yeah, it's much more interesting to have runoff elections though, because you can talk about it for an extra 3 weeks.
It's another new segment, you're right.
But so in the UK they don't do this. They've been asking about whether or not they do need to have voter reform now, and it's going to be one of the things that probably hangs around and sort of bugs the new Labor government for a while. Now need to learn how to say Keir Starmer.
Keir.
Apparently shares a namesake with the founder of the UK Labour Party. So
like a Keir Sorrento.
But spelled K-I-E-R, not Kia.
Yeah. Like there's like Kiev, Ukraine. Kia.
Or Chicken Kiev.
Kia. Yep. And 10 more minutes of this joke.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to say it properly now forever.
Anyway, it's nice to see the Tories get wiped out. That's the major thing to take away. The party lost 200 seats, which is like a once in a century wipeout.
It was something, but I thought that was the biggest defeat they've ever had or something like that. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. Or at least as far back as they keep records of that. So I mean the UK now, their new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer,
the fourth Labour Prime Minister to take government from a Conservative government. Fourth ever.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's pretty great. I mean, he strikes me as a ineffectual centrist, but like he's not one of the Tories.
Anthony
so
Albanese can call him up and give him some tips on being a fence-sitting centrist. How to really get those dimples in his ass going.
Yeah. So that's pretty great. Jeremy Corbyn got elected. But
as an independent.
Not as a member of the Labour Party, since no longer the leader after the 2019 defeat and all that sort of stuff. But got elected as an independent, and seems to have been absolutely smashing some interviews that I've seen going around. Him being like, because people keep trying to wedge him on like, oh, what do you think of what Labour did? He's like, well, yeah, that's cool and everything, but my constituents voted me in, not as a Labour guy, as an independent, because they actually agree with what I say, not what party I'm with. And I don't know if it was a recent photo from this election or not, but there were pictures of him in a gaming arcade playing a arcade machine that was a version of Doom, but where you shoot Margaret Thatcher. And I was like, what a picture. Like, just to get this old man playing like this bootleg version of Doom.
Can you believe Jeremy Corbyn did not win the last election? That is crazy.
Yeah.
So... other prominent Tories who also lost their seats include Commons leader Penny Mordaunt and former Cabinet Minister Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. So that's nice to see a bunch of Conservative bigwigs.
It was looking like
to them. That's nice.
Yeah, it was looking like maybe Rishi Sunak might lose his, which was like a bit of a.
He's going to resign in 20 minutes anyway. The whole reason he did this is because he had an existential death. Just like. Death wish. He was just fighting for just please put me out of my misery. Like
just would have been a historical first.
He'll be gone. He'll be gone in 3 weeks.
He'll be gone in a second. But just the idea
he's going to buy an island. Yeah. He's going to head off with his billionaire wife and be chilling out in California with Prince Harry before you know it. Like they're out of there. Man. He's not staying.
That'd be the ultimate like sticking the boot in. It was like, okay, now I'm just hanging out with the members of the royal family that just the tabloids have been shitting all over for years and years and years. So that's fun. The UK and France kicked some fuckwits in the dick. It's always good to see. When are we going to do our fuckwit dick kicking?
I think our dick kicking is scheduled probably for May next year. I don't think we're going to pencil in a dick kicking this year, especially with the cost of living crisis. I think Albo wants his dick kicking as late as possible, given the current sort of climate. So,
I mean, that's fair. But looking at our political climate, whose dicks are we kicking? Like, if we're kicking the dicks in the next election, like, there's a lot of them.
Dicks yet to be determined. Tom.
That's true. I could just kick myself in my own dick and call it a day.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social media that have, do, or ever will exist at our handle at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flippin' TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow me down to the newest national security data center where I'll be looking for a job. Just getting some of that sweet government money. There's no joke there, actually. I looked at an article and was like, I'm going to get a job there because it says
is that you telling your current employer that you are...
Yeah, is this you giving notice?
Tendering your resignation?
Yeah, I didn't think that one through, did I? No.
You really didn't.
No.
You just look for the casual rug shop with 3 guys with M16 standing out the front.
Yeah. You just rock up scratching your arms.
Everything must go, George.
Everything must go.
You got some of that sweet data? That sweet top secret data?
What you need, man. What you need. Thanks for listening, guys. I love you faces. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.